In this lecture, believe it or not, I'm going to tell you how to configure fiction, paragraph, and heading styles. Now, why am I teaching you fiction in a nonfiction course? What I want you to do is to become very familiar with configuring word, heading, and paragraph styles. And to make sure that you are, I'm going to show you how to configure both fiction and nonfiction so that you know the difference and that you get practice with two styles so that you get really good at configuring styles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to Word and start from scratch. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that in the course resources, the second lecture for this course and this lecture as well, you can find resources that you can download. You can find a Word template that all you do is you open it and it's already configured. You go and change all of the little markers that say change me here and to retitle the book to your book and so on, and it's all configured and ready for you to go. So that's the fast way to get up and going, but we're going to configure from scratch. So I'm basically going to show you how to create those templates from scratch, beginning with the fiction template, and then the next lecture we're going to do the nonfiction template, which is maybe a little more complicated. Maybe it's a toss-up. Let's jump over to Windows, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start Word by clicking on the icon in my taskbar, and up it comes, and I'm creating a blank document. Oh no, the dreaded white page. And you can see it comes up in my standard configuration, except that the ribbon is down. So my standard configuration is typically this with the ribbon closed, but because I'm going to be doing a lot of editing of the document, what I want to do is just open the home menu and come over, and we're going to have the ribbon open during this, and I'll close it once I'm done configuring my document. Now, what you can do is you can configure individual text like this is text. I can come here and I can configure it using these controls. I can configure its font to be Arial, and I can configure its size to be 12. Arial 12, I read somewhere, is the easiest to read online, so I like that a lot for nonfiction. I can also come here and I can change the color of the text to green and so on, and purple and stuff like that. Now, this is configuring specific text. What we want to do is configure a style. You configure one style and apply it over and over again to all the paragraphs in your document. So this is going to be the base way that your document looks. You can then go in and select individual paragraphs and words and configure them as I've been showing you. But styles apply to everything, and it allows you to change something in one place and affect your entire document. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All we've got to do is move over. Oh, here in paragraph, we can center things and left justify, do all this stuff. All I've got to do is move over to styles, and these are the styles that we're applying. Notice that this box is highlighted. The normal style is the base paragraph style, and we can modify it. First of all, let's undo my coloring here on my text. We can modify what the normal style is. I'm going to undo everything that I did by going over normal, right-clicking and getting the context menu and clicking on Modify. And here we get the Modify Style dialog box. Now notice this looks an awful lot like the configuration we were doing on selected text up here, right? I can select font and size. Here's font and size. I can make it bold, italic, underscore. But this applies to the normal style, which is going to affect all paragraphs in the document, not just the one I select. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at configuring for fiction. Now for fiction, I like using Times New Roman. For nonfiction, I like Arial. So set your font to Times New Roman, and my size, 11 is a good size, but I always like 12. I like to knock it up just a little more. I won't use bold, italic, or underscore. I'll use automatic color, which is going to be black. I will have this left justified. I'm going to leave all of this the same, basically. And The other thing that I want to do is a little bit complicated. So let's go down here to Format in the lower left and pick Paragraph. Now this will bring up a sub dialog box where I can configure the paragraph spacing. What I want to do with with fiction writing is to have the first line. So I go under Special and I say first line. I want to indent the first line automatically by 0.3. Now this will indent only the first line of every paragraph. And then after and before spacing, I want 0. So there's going to be no blank lines between the paragraphs, but each paragraph is going to be indented by 0.3 inches. And we'll say OK and OK. And suddenly our paragraph that we have changes to Times New Roman, and it jumps over to the right and gets a little bigger. Let's make this paragraph longer. And we'll select this text by triple-clicking, right-clicking and saying copy. This is another way rather than Control-V, Control-C. And I will Control-V it here, and I'll Control-V it here. So we have a nice long paragraph. Notice it's automatically indented, and notice that I am not hitting return at the end of the line. I'm letting Word automatically wrap. Now if I take this and I copy it and paste it again, whoops, but here, let's press enter. Notice anytime that I hit enter, I get my automatic indent, and I get no blank line in between lines. So this is how to configure your normal style, or the style that will be assigned to all paragraphs. Now, what's also interesting about normal is that all other styles inherit from normal. So now, my head ones, let's put in a chapter title here. That's known as a head 1. We'll say Chapter 1. Now we're actually going to do this a little more sophisticated, and we'll make it a heading 1. Now that's actually configured to be a different font. So we've overridden the inheritance of the Times New Roman font from normal into heading. Now, the other thing about headings is that you have multiple heading levels, and they're nested. So you have heading 1, and then within that you have heading level 2s and 3s. When writing fiction, you usually only have one head level, and that's a chapter. So you don't have another head level for scenes. Scenes are usually, you'll have scene breaks or something, a centered asterisk or a pound sign to indicate a scene break or a blank line, something like that. So you have chapters and you have scene breaks. So the only thing that is a heading is your chapters. Now we want to come up and configure the chapter heading here. And we're going to do it the same way we did normal. We'll move over it, right-click, and say Modify. Now notice this is based on the normal style, so this is where it's inheriting it. And then we change the font to Times New Roman, and I want 12 again. This time we want it bold, and I want it to be the automatic color, not this blue. And then we come over to Format Paragraph. Before, we want no space. Afterwards, we want 12 points of space. So we're going to put a little space between the chapter heading and the first paragraph. And the first line, which is indented 0.3, we don't want to be indented at all. So say none. On the line and page break, notice you have two tabs here. We're working with the indent and spacing. I can go over to the line and page break tab, and I can say put a page break before all my head level ones, and they'll all begin on a new page. Let's say OK and OK. And you can see now our chapter heading is left justified. It is Times New Roman. It is bold. And if I put in another chapter heading, let's come down here and we'll say Chapter 2. And to make it a chapter heading, I just come up to normal and I left click on heading 1. And notice now I have a chapter with a page break. So a page break automatically gets put in there. This is so nice. My chapters will all automatically begin on a new page in paperback and on a new screen in Kindle ebook. Also notice that my navigation pane has begun to accumulate chapter headings over here, allowing me to navigate. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is numbering. You usually number chapters. And whenever I have a chapter heading, I don't have a title on it. We could have a title that looks like something like this, The Beginning, right? This is a pretty sophisticated chapter heading. Chapter 1, The Beginning. And this could also be centered. So how would we do that if I don't want, because notice this. Here we have chapter 1, The Beginning, and chapter 2. Let's call this The Ending. Okay? And if I take chapter 2 and move it up before chapter 1, it stays chapter 2. So we're not automatically numbering chapters. So if we move them around, we've got to renumber all of our chapters. That would be horrible if you had to renumber all of your chapters and keep maintaining that. So what you do is you let Word number your chapters for you. Let's go back to the heading 1, right-click on it, and select Modify, and then come down to Format where we have been going to Paragraph and pick Numbering. There we go. So what we want is a style like this. We want it to say chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then have a colon and then the name of the chapter. So let's say OK to that. We'll apply it. Now you see we have chapter 1, The Beginning. So we've got to go back and let's go back in. It undid some of my configuration here on Paragraph. Let's go back in and modify the head level on Paragraph 1 and look at the spacing. Look at we've got hanging. Left, it put an indent on that. We don't want that. So get rid of the left indent so that it's left justified. After we've got 12, that's good. Hanging, what hanging is that's how much space it's going to leave after that built-in chapter 1 before our title. So let's say that. That should look pretty good. There we go. So now all we have to do, come here and get rid of our initial spacing, and then there we go. Now we've got our name right up, but now it's too close. Wouldn't you know it? Let's make it 0.9 inches. Yeah, I should have figured out my spacing before recording this, but then this shows you the interactive nature of setting things up here, right? So clear all, 0.9 inches. There we go. Okay. Now we've got the right amount of space. Now the final thing that I can do here is I can take this and I can go to chapter 1, modify, and notice here, I've got it left justified. I can center it. So I pick the centering option and I say, okay, and now my chapter headings are centered. So you have various options. Center them, or right-click here, go to modify, left justify them, right-click here, modify, and go to numbering. I can turn numbering off, in which case I just get the chapter title. I can change the font on it. So you now know how to set your base normal style and your heading 1 style. And that's all you need to write fiction. In nonfiction, which we're going to cover in the next lecture, you need to have multiple hierarchical headings, and we're going to number them all hierarchically. So it's going to get a little more complex. So I actually am glad that I started with fiction here and we could be a little easy. In the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to modify this fiction template into a nonfiction template. And remember that you do have templates as resources that are downloadable in this course.